Hi there, I'm going to quickly show you how to find some PDF resources in our curriculum materials. So let's start with ELA. We can check out iReady, and then if we can get those working all right, then we can move on to some of the other programs as well. But McGraw-Hill, we'll start there. That's your Wonders, your ELA. So I'm going to click on that from Clever and just give it a moment. It takes a second for it to pick up who you are and then log you in. All right, and so you've got your 5th grade materials here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the teacher edition here of Wonders. All right, we'll just X this out. And then up here at Resources, I'm going to go to Resource Library. And then you've got some reproducibles here. So we've got approaching reproducibles. That'll open up a PDF. You can see these are pretty large PDFs. This is 310 pages long. You've got beyond reproducibles. All right, and equally this is quite long, right? And then ELL reproducibles. So these are going to be just large PDFs that you can pull worksheets from. So what you want to do when you have those PDFs is you don't, of course, want to assign anything that is 310 pages long. I'm going to use this beyond reproducibles one. What you would want, for example, is let's say you wanted just this page 147, for example, right? I don't know what this particular assignment is, but let's say you want this just one page 147 here. What I would do is first I would download this PDF and just keep it, right? And so I would call this like my Wonders worksheets, and maybe I would call this WB for Workbook 1. Because there are those 3 different ones, right? So you could name it, of course, whatever you want, but you could download each of the 3, 1, 2, 3, and you could call Workbook 1, 2, 3, or Workbook ELL, Workbook Beyond, Workbook Approaching, whatever is easiest for you. So in any event, now I'm going to go to Cami. Cami, of course, is wonderful for being able to edit those assignments so your students can complete them, but it's also really helpful for you to be able to create these worksheets in the first place. So you could either open up that PDF that we just saved from Google Drive, if that's where you saved it, and if you have a Chromebook, that's where it'll be. Or if you're like me and you're working on a desktop computer that's not a Chromebook, I just saved that to the computer, so that's where I'm going to open it from. So you'll want to open it, again, if you're on a Chromebook, yours will be in your Google Drive, and that's where you saved it. Wherever you saved it, that's where you want to open it from. Okay, so now we've got our PDF here open in Cami. You can see still 310 pages long. Now, what we want now is not to use any of these tools, because that's how you or your students can annotate or edit or write on top of the PDFs. What you want is to go over here to this little hamburger button. It's the 3 horizontal lines, and we're going to split and merge. Give it a moment. This is 310 pages, so it will take a second. Continue to split and merge. Okay, now it's saying, is this is the document you want to work with? Yes, it is. I'll click Next. All right, and then it's going to just basically line it all out page by page horizontally up here at the top, right? And you'll notice that as I scroll over to the right, I just get a bunch of loading. And that's because it can't load all this at the same time, otherwise it's going to eat away at all your computer memory, and your computer would run far too slowly. So it just keeps it as this loading. But if you want to see, like, where am I at here, you can just click these little arrows, preview page, and that'll allow you to preview the page, and it'll also see what happens is, like, anything around it, it kind of says, okay, this is the chunk of the text that we're working in now, so it'll make all that visible. But as I scroll to the right, notice that again, it is all loading. Same thing though. I'm like, okay, this was around page 147, I want to say. And so I click the arrow and click outside of it, and then everything else nearby that chunk will also appear. Okay, so let's say I wanted page, let's see, we've got looks like a little reading here and some questions that follow. So I'll go with that, and maybe I'm ambitious. I'm going to give let's say 2 sheets. So let's say I want page 146 and 147. That's the homework assignment that I want to create. All I need to do is just click on it and drag it down here. And then let's say I wanted 147 too, so I'll click on that one and drag it down. And now I've got an assignment that is 2 pages long. And so today, let's say is Tuesday. Let's say I want to, okay, while I'm here, I might as well create some assignments for the rest of the week. So let's say 148, that's what I'll do tomorrow, 148 and 149. And let's say the next day is 150 and 151. See how I'm kind of just, and you don't, of course, let's say 152, 153, you don't have any interest in those. Those don't apply to anything, or you don't have to go in this order. You can pick and choose. You could say, all right, and for Friday, I want page 156, so I'm going to skip some. Oop, I dropped it in the wrong one. Just click and drag it down there. And let's say you don't have to go in order. So let's say you had 156, and let's say I want, I'll click the arrow so I can get some more. Let's see what's on page 166. So I'll drag 166, and I'm just showing you this. I have no idea what it is, but just to show you, you don't have to choose pages in order. So here I chose 156, and then I jumped ahead to 166, and I grabbed that one. All right. So now what I want to do is I could export. First, well, I should probably name them. So let's say I'll call this Reading Comprehension Tuesday. You could, whatever is applicable. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to call these by the days. I don't know if this is a good way of doing it, but maybe you'd probably want to do it by the actual skill or the standard being addressed. But for our sake, I'll say here's my Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. All right, so now you have a couple options here. You could export all of this, but it's going to export it as a zip file, and then you have to unzip it. It might be easiest if you just export them individually. So let's say I export this Tuesday. Again, you could download it. If you're on a desktop computer, a Windows or a Mac, you can download it to the computer itself. If you are on a Chromebook, then downloading it to Google Drive will be your only option. Right, either way will work. So if you're in, we'll say Google Drive, and then it's best to put those things in folders. You can see I've got folders for all of my work here. So let's say I had an ELA folder, which I do not actually, so I'm going to download too. But for you, if I were you, I would go into Google Drive and create a folder and call it like ELA worksheets, and then inside of that you can put, you know, folders with dates on it, and then put all these worksheets in the specific folders so you know exactly what to pull from on a given day. But for the purpose of time, I'm just going to go ahead and download this particular file, RC Tuesday. Download file. All right, so now I've got a PDF. If I open it up, it is just the 2 pages, right? And that's it. So now if I wanted to assign this to my students, I would go to create, I'm in Google Classroom now, create assignment, and you would give it a name as you usually do, Reading Comprehension, right? You would type your instructions. You would try to spell things correctly. Alrighty, you would give it your points. So let's say you only wanted this worth 10 points. You would give it your due date. This is due tomorrow, say. You would give it a topic. So you can see you have topics, so you might put this under reading. And then finally, we would go to add. And then if yours is in your Google Drive, that's where you would add it from. Mine was not in my Google Drive. I downloaded it to the computer itself. So I'm going to upload it. And this is the name of the file, RC Tuesday. And of course, as always, when you want students to complete work, always, always, always make a copy for each student. All right, and that's pretty much it. So you could do that for each of the days, and I don't want to click assign because this is your actual class, and that'll create some confusion, I imagine. So you would just click assign, and then the students would be able to click on that file, and they would see this preview on their computer, and they would click annotate with Cami. All right, and then they would be able to read and add text for their answers. So let's see, maybe you want them to type it in green so you could easily find their answers. All right. I don't know. Right, so and then they would continue on and they would answer all of those using the text boxes. Now, one thing that is interesting is that I'm on the teacher's view here, right? Your students will have a button right here that says turn in, right? I don't have that, again, because I'm looking at this from a teacher's view. I have not assigned it in Google Classroom, but your students would do exactly what I've done here. They would open it up, they would add their text to answer the questions for each one. And of course, they've got 2 pages here. And then they would hit that turn in button right up here, right? So there's save. They could, of course, still save, but it'll auto save for them. But the big thing is they need to hit that turn in button, and that's going to turn it in directly to your Google Classroom. And that is how that will work. A couple other, or at least one other, we'll just go do with one for now. But another resource that you can access for worksheets is iReady. So if you click on iReady, again, I went back to Clever. That Clever, and remember that's clever.com/in/152. And then I clicked on the iReady icon. And then what you want is to go to Assess and Teach and Teacher Toolbox. And here you have reading and math. So we had reading for the last one, so let's go with math for this example. And then up here is you can choose the grade level. So let's say you want to find materials for 5th grade math. And then here you've got materials that you can use for instruction. You've got materials that students can use for practice. So these are more like workbooks. These are like quizzes and things like that for your assessments, and so forth. So let's just choose understanding place value here under the practice. That's where you're going to find the workbook type stuff. So understanding place value, I'm going to click on this file right here, but you can scroll right on down and see all the different standards that you could select PDFs for. So let's go with this one here. And then it's going to give you some worksheets that you can choose from. So I'll go with this. Let's see, that is pages 3 through 8. Notice that I'm clicking, this one says student, so we want one that's for the student. So I'm going to click on that one and open. And there's my PDF. Now, this is 6 pages long, so this is something that maybe you can see there's not actually that many questions on it, though, for being as long as it is. You just got a lot of pictures. So maybe this is reasonable for a class period, or you could stretch it out over 2 days. Or if you wanted to, you could do what we did with the last example, is upload it to Cami and then split it in half, say, for example, and only make it 3 pages long. And give them one on one day and then give them the second half on the other day, right? So again, I would download it. Let's say this is my Math Tuesday. Save it, upload it to Cami, split it apart, and then add that split version to Google Classroom. So that's how you would do that. Exactly the same way as with the reading, though, so I don't want to be repetitive with you here and show another example. So those are a few ways that you can upload PDFs and get your students to work on them through Cami with the resources that we have. One last thing I want to point out is, to the extent that it is possible, I would try to avoid ever uploading JPG files or anything that's not a PDF when you want your students to work with it in Cami. That's going to create just added friction. It's an extra step. So giving them something like this, because it's a JPG file, so it's an image file. So your students can technically open it with Cami, but it's going to recognize that it's not a PDF, and it's going to want to convert it, and then it's an imperfect science how that actually happens. So as you can see, this is not, nearly as desirable of an outcome as some of those previous examples that I showed you were. For example, it is much easier for your students to work with this than it is this. So I would avoid ever using JPG files. If you have something that is a JPG, I would suggest converting it yourself first, and you can do that. You can do that in Cami, but there's another tool here. It's ilovepdf.com, and they have a specific tool for JPG to PDF conversions, and that works much better. So you can do that, but I would make that conversion yourself first before uploading it to Google Classroom, because uploading it to Google Classroom and then kind of having the students take care of that conversion is just going to create problems for you. So that is definitely something that you want to keep in mind, I would suggest. All right, I'm going to stop there because this is getting longer than I anticipated. Hopefully that helps give a little bit of insight, and if you want to see where we can get some other additional materials, I can help with that as well, but I think this is a good start without being too overwhelming. So all right, let me know if you have any questions or issues, and I'd be happy to help.